You're listening to the Superpower Radio Show with your host, Brenda Major, and I wish Mia Dawson, but she had an important meeting and she's going to miss us this time, and we're going to miss her. But we are back with Dayna Harvey, and we really can't get enough of talking about the importance of water safety. And you've heard from her a couple of times, but as we were talking at the end of the show last time, you made such an important comment when you said, if your child is ever missing, go to where water is first. So we're going to talk a little bit. Well, you're going to talk a little bit about some of those poignant stories that, they, in some cases they are definitely preventable.
Yes.
Now this certainly is not a show where we're condemning caregivers. We're just
No.
we're arming them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Brenda, one of the things that as I've created all of this, I'm really out to help parents to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to approach this from a place of fear mongering, where
Yeah.
I'm doing this to make you so fearful that you don't take your kids to water.
Right. Or
And
lock them in the house, or lock them in
right.
the rooms.
Don't ever give them a bath. But I feel sometimes when we're throwing statistics around that it does become that perception of that we're fear-based. I want to help parents to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the most part, when I'm talking to parents, it's because they're being now reactive. A situation has happened. They've
Okay.
heard about something or they've experienced something, and then they recognize where the pitfalls are or where their lapses are, and we need to work on filling those in.
Yeah.
So, and so we're going to talk about some different scenarios and different stories. Some of them are ones that I've experienced, some are ones that I've only read about. But please know that when it comes to all of this, my goal is that we are proactive, that we are putting things into place so that we don't end up having to talk about this kind of a story.
I'm glad you said it that way, Dayna, because as you were talking, I was thinking, fearful parents can actually put that fear into the child too.
Absolutely.
And so,
absolutely.
There's still that misconception that kids with autism don't have feelings, which is absolutely not true.
No,
and that
absolutely
they
not.
don't pick up on other people's feelings, which
right.
Again, absolutely not true.
Yes.
So we really do want to, I love that, prepare families.
Yeah, ahead of time, so
Mm-hmm.
that we're not experiencing these things.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not a judgment thing either. I mean, accidents happen. I always, when we talk about the word watching, and we talked about it last time,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that we lack, it's a lack of watching, it's a lapse of watching.
I love that. Say that again.
So it's not a lack of watching, like we're just not going, forget it, I'm not watching you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lapse in, I was watching you and then I went to change over the laundry. Or I was watching you and I thought I'll just stir dinner, and I thought somebody, another parent or a teenager,
somebody else was watching.
Somebody else was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that moment, there's a lapse. And I think I said last time we talked about, if there's makeup or flour, we can laugh about those lapses. But when it comes around water, we can't afford to have the lapses. We've got to be hypervigilant, especially with our children who have ASD, who are, they're attracted to water, and 50% of children elope. So we can't, if there's access to water, we've got to be so much more proactive in this. But then, like I said, if your child goes missing, you go to water first. So in our, and Mia shared her story about her son in the bathtub. So even within your own house, if you don't have water outside of your house, you go to the bathroom first. And if you do have water outside in a pool or a canal or a retention pond or whatever it is, you go outside first.
Wow.
We want to make sure that those things are eliminated, or those sources of our children being gone have been gone through before we tackle anything else.
Wow. And I know you had
So
some, go ahead, that you had some
stories. Well, I was going to
statistics
say,
you
so
wanted to
I've got
share
one
too.
story that I want to share with you
Yeah.
from last summer. And this is one of my swim families.
Mm.
And so I get a text, and they're always like, my heart jumps when I get one, when you only see the first couple lines. And it said, I'll just read it to you. It says, I just have to tell you that, and then the child's name, swim lessons with you this summer literally saved his life this past week. So
Wow.
this little boy was 3. He had done 1 week of lessons with me, so Monday to Friday. So again, this isn't so much about the swim lessons, but about the water safety component that I teach every day within my program.
Okay.
She said, I've never been so scared and panicked in my life. We were at the lake for a week, last week. And on the last day we were packing up, and he was in the truck playing around. All of a sudden I realized he wasn't in the truck anymore, and I started yelling. And no one knew where he was.
Wow.
Again, this little one is 3. I immediately ran down to the dock, and there he was waiting.
Ah, thank God. Waiting.
Right?
W.
And
Waiting.
she said, he turned to her and said, I wait, mommy. And then she says, what could have been devastating turned out to be okay because of your lessons. It made me realize how fast a little one can slip away near water.
Wow.
You know, they're not announcing it. I'm going. They just, off they go.
Dayna, how
And
did you feel reading that? I mean, you
well,
know, we hope that what we tell people sticks,
yes.
but this one, how did that make
Well,
you feel?
it still gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Because for a couple of reasons, Brenda. One is that a lot of people say that teaching children where there's water, I will wait, utilizing the mats and the tape, that they're too young. They don't understand. You're like, and I keep saying, I disagree. I disagree. I mean, I've
Yeah.
got little 2-year-olds that I know for certain absolutely understand what's being asked of them. And I probably got 300 sets of parents right now that will tell you exactly the same thing. So for me, this validated within my program, teaching where there's water, I will wait.
Yes.
He didn't have a mat. He didn't have tape there. All he had was the words, where there's water, I will wait. So, I know at any age, we can be teaching our children this, and it will be impactful I believe, in beginning to eradicate drowning.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that's a firsthand story.
What a powerful one
Within
to lead with.
well, and I wanted it to be mine, like from my
Yeah.
program, because sometimes when we start reading statistics or stories, it doesn't feel real because we're not heart connected to it. My
Right.
brain says, oh yeah, I can understand that happens, but my heart says, oh, that'll never happen to me because I always watch my kids, or I never leave them unattended. And that's just not true. Again, there's no judgment,
Yeah.
but it's just not true. So I've gone through the statistics in Florida and Texas,
Okay.
only because they do a really great job of giving us more details.
Okay. Sure.
Not just a 1-year-old in a pool. We get a
Right.
little bit more from Texas, but a lot more from Florida.
Okay. Sure.
So last year in Florida, as I was reading through, we'll go back. In Florida last year, 99 children under the age 18 drowned. 99. 82 of them were under 5.
Oh wow.
Okay. So, and of those 99, 13 of those children had an ASD diagnosis.
Okay.
So, that's a 13%. That's really high
It
for
is.
one demographic. of children. So, so with this being said, let's just kind of go through a few of those.
Yeah.
You know, a 6-year-old autistic child, what got into a canal. Okay, so
Mm.
we're not talking backyard pools. And I think when we start talking about drowning, people are like, oh, well, I don't have a backyard pool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it is very high on the list, but we also have to consider other water sources,
Sure.
lakes, ponds, retention ponds,
Mm-hmm.
canals. All of those things are potential drowning hazards.
Sure.
So, and because with children who have ASD, if you're like, I am never having a pool in my house,
Right, right.
right? Because of that, but we still have access to water, you know, like in
Sure.
Florida when I was down there. I mean, there's water everywhere, literally
Mm.
everywhere. So
Wow.
if it's not in your backyard, you still might have access within a short radius of a
You know, and
distance.
and kids can find things. We so underestimate kids.
Yes,
Where there's water, thank God the ones who've gone
yes,
through your program know to wait. But
yes.
they're almost like these little divining rods. They find it. We may
It
not
is.
even realize it.
And our children with ASD, and I have found in my personal experience with teaching, the ones that I have taught, especially the ones that are not verbal,
Mm-hmm.
their other senses are
Yeah.
so much more heightened. So their memory of where things are
Mm-hmm.
is can be just crazy. So if you've walked by water
Mm-hmm.
and or it's something that's been talked about or something that's been noticed, you have to know that the chances that they could get back there are probably pretty high.
Wow.
You know, like
That's
again, if it's in a vicinity where you've been, like you've walked there from your
Mhm.
house, or you know, it's close to your apartment building or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that you've got to really consider the fact that they are retaining it
Mm-hmm.
and can and could get themselves back there,
Okay.
right? So one of the things that kept coming up over and over again, the words in this, oh, so I'll show you, it's like just pages and pages
Okay. Yeah.
of all of this. So one of the things that's it's saying that they so and so drowned because they got out of the house undetected.
Mm.
Okay, so last time we talked about install the gates, alarms, and barriers, and
Yeah.
all of the things, and then double checking it before, you know, we close the entry and exit points. One of the ones said that they gained access to the pool while the parents were unloading the groceries.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, so again, it's just that something has happened. The entry point to the water is there. We're distracted doing something else, and
Mm-hmm.
into the pool we go, or the river, or the beach, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So really being conscious of those, the entry and exit points
Mm-hmm.
always being closed. So if you go through it with groceries, you make sure it's closed. It can't be open a little because little people and big people, they find their
Yeah.
way
Yeah. Yeah.
to that water. So yeah, so those words kept coming up and coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Another one that I noticed, kind of that trend, especially within Florida, a lot of the drownings happened, it said, you know, at an Airbnb, or the people were
Mm.
from out of town.
Okay.
So if you've got people coming to visit you that are not used to being around water, you know, that's not something that they have regular access to.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they may not have educated their children on how to act around water.
Good point.
Again, we've got to be hyper diligent. And have those conversations. If you're going to your sister's house in
Mm-hmm.
Florida and they got a pool and your child is nonverbal, you know, we've got to, what do we have? Do we have alarms? Do we have fences? What do we have so that we can begin to prepare to have a safer environment for our children?
And given that scenario, what advice would you give to the parent who's visiting, say it's a relative? I mean,
Yes.
you know, do you ask them to have things in place? Do you bring them? Do you explain? Because there's still people who say, really, you're being just hyper
Ridiculous.
vigilant, and it's
Yeah.
yeah. What
Yeah.
how
So there are portable things, like there are alarms that you can get, and they're not, I mean, you can get high-end ones too, but you can get smaller ones. You can get different kinds of lock barriers for
mm-hmm.
doors. On for the pool, if it's a backyard pool situation, you can
Mm-hmm.
actually get a sensor that goes in the pool. So if the water moves, the
Oh,
sensor will go off.
oh
And again,
wow.
anything that is man-made is fallible,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
right?
true.
Like
Yes,
it
yes.
requires us to be listening. It requires
Still be
us
watching,
to
listening.
make
Yeah.
it work properly. So we can't just go, "Phew, well, that's done. I did that." But it's one of the reasons, again, with the water safety kit that I created the tape to be transportable. So, you take a piece of red tape and a piece of blue tape, and if that's what you're working on with your child in your home, you take that with you.
Okay.
That becomes part of their consistent water access. It really, really important. But have those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Ask, what's the worst they're going to say? We have nothing. Okay, well,
Well,
now
I'm bringing it then.
I'm going to bring it. Or, I've got one family that said, well, we're not coming. We can't stay with you then
Oh, wow.
because
Okay.
because this environment is not safe for our
Mm-hmm.
child. No hard feelings. It's
Right.
just that's the way it is. Um, and again, usually people that are willing to take that hard of a stand have had an experience,
Mm-hmm.
or
Good
know
point.
somebody that has had a
Yeah.
drowning
Good
experience.
point. Good
So,
point.
not that we take it more seriously, it just hits a little closer to home. It
Yeah.
seems
Point taken.
it seems more real that that could actually happen. Because sometimes we hear about ones that are like, how does that even? There's no way that's made up. And I'm going to share two different scenarios.
Mm.
Last year in Florida, there was, I believe it was an 8-year-old little boy who was autistic who
Mm-hmm.
drowned in a horse trough.
What?
Yeah. So again, we don't get all the details about how that happened,
Wow.
but so clearly, on a farm maybe, um, but a horse trough. And I did the same thing. I was like, well, that's got to be a one in a million. There's no way.
Yeah.
In Florida this year, so in the first 4 months of this year, a 1-year-old little boy drowned in a horse trough.
My goodness.
Yeah. So again, it
Wow.
depends. Is it deep? Like we were talking about with the toilets. How does that happen?
Yes.
They're top heavy. They can't get out, and it doesn't take very long.
Mm.
Head down in an environment like that for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That will
I
produce a
remember
tragedy.
you mentioning, and that just blew my mind, the kid that drowned in a dog's water
Yes.
pool.
Yeah, that one was in Florida last year. And I
Mm.
think the little one, I want to say, was 11 months old,
Oh my goodness.
maybe. But another one that seems wild, and how did that happen? They drowned in the family's septic tank.
What? Okay. How did that
So,
happen?
so who knows? Was they were working on it and the
Mm.
top was off, and the little one, like, again, we're not thinking that these are water environments where a child could drown. It's just a
Right.
septic tank. We have to have that, right? We don't think of
Right.
it as a
Right.
water environment. So, just in those three scenarios, the dog dish, a septic tank, a horse trough, we
Unreal.
can't rule out any body of water. They can take their life that fast.
One
So,
one I wanted to ask you about, because it happened while I was in Kentucky a couple of years ago.
okay,
A 9-year-old little boy who was in a children's home in Covington, Kentucky. It's 9:30 at night, and ran from the home, and
yes,
they said he ran like 4,000 feet in 11 minutes. So he was motoring and drowned in the Ohio River. But the interesting thing, as I was reading over it again today, they said this kid had run away before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy to think they said, well, he usually runs toward town where the restaurants are, but this time he ran in the opposite direction and pretty
Right.
darn fast in the
Yeah.
opposite direction. And I'm thinking, sometimes parents assume that,
Yes.
oh, my kid only does this, or
Right.
he only, if he goes, and maybe they, I mean, I don't know the conditions of the group home, and I
Right.
would
And
begin to guess, and maybe
yeah.
they had neighbors who watched who's like, oh, let's get him back in, I mean, who knows? But
Right.
this time, I mean, he must have taken off like a rocket
Yeah.
in the opposite direction.
Direction. Yeah.
So I mean, you can't predict even what your child would do.
Right. Like
And
it,
I'm
so
guessing
when
that
there's
maybe he'd seen that water, that he knew where it was. He'd
yeah,
seen it before, I guess.
and went to it, or maybe because it was dark, he got down there but then slipped and didn't mean to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um there's a thousand scenarios, and again, that's where it comes back to teaching our children, being proactive and
Mm-hmm.
positive about teaching them the respect around water, how
Yeah.
we're going to interact with water. We don't just go in, we don't just put a life jacket on and let them go in. And we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
But this is the same, the same kind of scenario. We want to always know that the water is more powerful. But how can we begin to really work with our children to keep them out of it at
Mm-hmm.
times when they're not meant to be? So the statistics say that 69% of drownings happen during non-swim times, like
Hmm.
times that kids should not be anywhere near water. And I think people think, oh, the drownings will happen, you know, when it's like when they're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, it's the opposite. It's when they've got
Hmm.
clothes on, or it's just
So
the
they're not
opposite
even
scenario.
prepared, even if they could swim, they're not prepared
Right.
for swimming at that
Yes.
time.
Right.
Wow.
And then 88% of drownings happen with an adult nearby.
Wait, what?
Yes. With
Oh
an
my
adult
goodness.
nearby.
Oh,
So these are not drownings for the most part
okay.
where kids are
Wow.
just see you later and wandering off
Wow.
and drowning somewhere.
Oh
Um,
my goodness.
when you think about the home scenario, if your child is 2 and they drown in a bathtub, chances are there's an adult nearby.
Yeah.
If they drown in a backyard pool, there's an adult nearby. Um, so again, it comes back to the watching initiative. We've
Yeah.
got to be watching, we've got to be educating our children. Another one that came up often in these was a drowning that happened at a birthday party or a barbecue or like a family gathering.
So with lots of
And
people around.
right. And then, but I think, again, it's all guessing, but
Yeah.
knowing that probably what happened is parent A thought parent B was
Mm,
watching, or, parent C was watching all the kids. And
mm-hmm.
and one of the kids ended up underneath a floaty mat, and nobody's really like lifeguarding. We're
Yeah.
just, we're having a drink and conversing, and then but we're watching the kids. We're not really watching them.
Mm.
So, those scenarios, when you have lots of people around, you cannot assume that somebody or anybody is watching your child.
Wow.
Lifeguards included, really, truth be told.
Wow. Wow.
So I know. So and that's why when I was pulling all of this content for you, like I said, I can read off like almost 200 stories.
I'm getting chills
Yeah. But
and nervous and
understanding that you can take a child of any age and put them into any water environment, with a parent, without a parent, with a grandparent, with a babysitter, with a older sibling. And in the end, we can come up with equals tragedy every single time.
yeah.
And that's what I'm aiming to stop. I want to know that if child is with parent A or parent B or grandparent or babysitter or older sibling or friend, that that they are safe around water because what
Yeah.
they have learned is going with them. Everybody's on the same page into how we're going to deal with water safety.
So Dana, when you're talking about the whole watching acronym,
Yeah.
and where there's water I will wait, and going back to the first story with the 3-year-old, because it
Yes.
really sounds to me like the parent and the child have to buy in,
Yes.
but human nature, parents buy in but aren't consistent.
Yes.
So how do what do we do? How do we help with that?
Well, and I'm going to keep speaking this message, and just reminding parents. I want how we work with water safety be um, as repetitive and as instinctive as buckling our children in a car seat.
Mm-hmm.
At no point are we going to go, you don't feel like sitting in your car seat today? Okay, well, you can just walk around the car. That doesn't happen. But
No,
more,
right.
but it's drowning that's the number one cause of death in children under 5, not car accidents.
Right.
So as our mind shift happens, and more parents begin to realize, oh yeah, I buckle my child in a car seat every day. And then our end result is we are safer. I teach
Mm-hmm.
my child ABCs every day. We
Mm-hmm.
work on colors and letters every day. And what are those results? Our children go to school and they are successful.
Yeah.
It's got to be the same kind of thing with water safety. I want it to be part of an everyday life. So when we drive by the river and the kids say, oh, look, there's the river, that will spark a conversation about water and the
Okay.
river, because the river water is very different than the bathtub water,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's all water.
Still water.
So
Still water.
yeah, and just like you said, we don't give our kids enough credit for being so smart,
Yeah, yeah.
um
They've
and
got those
learning.
superpowers. Yeah, they do.
Absolutely.
They do.
And we can't underestimate them. For good or for bad, we can't underestimate their ability to get into mischief. Um, but again, around water, mischief usually comes with a pretty hard
Yeah.
reality, and I don't want that for
And
families.
I know with superpower kids, particularly those who are verbal, and they're not definitely not all the same, but
No,
one thing that I've seen is that they do like routine.
yes,
And so if they learn it,
yeah,
and a
it's
parent may
in
be
there
a
for good.
little parent may slack off a bit, but the
Yeah,
kid, just like that 3-year-old, is like,
yeah,
look, where there's water, I will wait. I don't care where the water is, I am waiting because it's
yeah.
in me, and that's what I'm doing. So
Exactly. And it's funny you say that, because at lessons this week when I taught, I always put up the mats and then I put out the red tape and we make a big production. We close the pool, we open the pool. Well, I had a group of kids that came down, they're like, Miss Dayna, you didn't close the pool. I'm like,
ah,
sorry. So I said, you guys go ahead and close the pool. So they took the red tape and they closed the pool themselves.
okay.
Because it's become routine for them. That's how they're going to interact with water. But yeah, they'll call me out on it every time. Miss Dayna, where's the red tape? Miss Dayna, where's the mats?
There you go.
Um, so
So
I have to be on my game.
yeah,
And again, if this is my life, and there is a moment where I forget, you know, giving grace to parents to say, yeah,
sure.
you might
Yes.
forget,
Yeah.
and it's okay, but we can't forget consistently.
Right.
We've
Right.
got to we can forget every once in a while. Um, but as we're first teaching our children things, we want to be over the top with being consistent.
Hmm.
And then, like with this little one's mom,
Yeah.
he was just sitting on the dock waiting,
Yeah.
wait, not going in.
And you kind of already started leading into my final question, because we're of course out of time.
Out of
But
time.
but if there's something that you can really, just kind of hammer home with families about
Yes.
water safety, what would that be?
That start at home, start with your bathtub, and start every day.
Hmm.
Every day. We do not get into the bathtub unless everybody is prepared for that water time. We will open up the bathtub. We'll have a bath. Parents will have their phones down and away. They will not be distracted. They won't leave to get a towel or shampoo, or answer the door or stir dinner. We are fully engaged in bath time. When it's over, out we get, and we're going to close the water off.
Beautiful.
We can do it every single day in our homes. Verbal, nonverbal, neurodivergent, or not, it doesn't matter. It does not matter to me, but it can start in our homes, and it's simple, and it's one sentence. Where there's water, I will wait.
Yep. I've got it. And
let's want your dreams now.
I've got it. And thank you so much again for being with us today.
Thank you, Brenda.
You've been listening to the Superpower Radio Show with your host, Brenda Major, and I feel like, and Miss Dayna. Thanks so much.
All right, we'll see you all soon.